And time to introduce Mitch. And I think probably everybody is familiar with Mitch. He's going to speak today with faithfully leaning into change. And just a little bit about him. Things have changed just a little bit. He's still a ministerial student, Emerson Theological Institute, soon to be certified and authorized and stamped as official reverend. But right now he's just a mindful, wonderful human being practicing what he's preaching. Licensed science of mind practitioner for over 8 years. He's in Sacramento, California, serving there as the ministerial counsel for the Amani Center and as lead practitioner of the Center for Spiritual Awareness. He's also the member of the affiliated New Thought Network and founder of Speak, Teach, Inspire LLC. Just amazing number of projects and things going on. A wonderful human being who's going to give us some words of wisdom this morning. Please take it away, Mitch.
Good morning. Good to see everybody again. So grateful to be with you this Sunday morning. And I just love coming here, seeing your faces, catching up with you, and bringing an inspirational message to lift your heart. I think the last time I was with you, we were taming our inner critic. So let me know how that's going at Coffee Talk, by the way. I'm happy to continue to support that effort. So today we're talking about change, faithfully leaning in to change. And the past couple of years, we've been really through this heightened kind of washing machine of change, right? I don't know if anybody out there got change exhaustion. I do. And this message is especially dear to my heart because I'm going through some big changes. And you know, as teachers, we teach what we need to learn. So we get reminded and bring to front of consciousness the things, the tools, the truth, the spiritual practices, and that help us along our journey. So what we're going to talk about today is a familiar subject for all of us because we've experienced change, but we're going to look at it more granularly. And I have 3 things that we can do to support ourselves as we move through change. And so I want to start off today's talk with a little video from my original mentor that got me into this path, Wayne Dyer. And so we'll listen to a little of his wisdom now.
A 92-year-old, petite, well-poised, and proud lady who's fully dressed each morning by 8 o'clock, 92 years old, with her hair fashionably coiffed and makeup perfectly applied, even though she's legally blind and moved to a nursing home today. Her husband of 70 years recently passed away, making the move necessary. After many hours of waiting patiently in the lobby of this nursing home, she smiled sweetly when she told her room was now ready. As she maneuvered her walker to the elevator, I provided a visual description of her tiny room, including the eyelet sheets that had been hung on the window. "I love it," she stated, with the enthusiasm of an 8-year-old, having just been presented with a new puppy. "But Mrs. Jones, you haven't even seen the room yet. Just wait." "That doesn't have anything to do with it," she said. "Happiness is something you decide on ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not doesn't depend on how the furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind." When you change the way you look at things, even if you're legally...
Thank you for playing that video. When you change the way you look at things, even if you're legally blind, the things you look at change, is the way that clip ended. And what I love about this example is the grace and empowerment and peace that this woman was moving through this change with. Who would like some of that grace, empowerment, and peace with some of the big changes? Yes? Well, we're going to talk about that, cultivating our mind so that we can have that more of that experience when changes come in to our experience. And in particular, 3 things I'm going to talk about today: cultivating our spiritual worldview. That's our work. That's something we can do now that will help us move through those changes with more resilience and faith and grace. Also, practicing acceptance and letting go of attachments. And then the last thing is to live life on life's terms. And we're going to talk about what some of those terms are and how to embrace them in ways that will help us navigate change. So what's behind change? The spiritual law behind change is the perpetual transmutation of energy. So everything's always in flux. That's the unseen law behind all change. Everything has to move and shift. And without movement, without change, there is no life. I mean, just imagine you come into the world in these baby bodies. What if they never change? I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. We wouldn't be able to have an experience of life. You know, I love what the philosopher, ancient Greek philosopher says, Heraclitus. He says, life is a journey into the unknown where the only constant is change. So we're wedded in this dance of change. And we can be wedded in ways that help us not experience as much fear and resistance, or we can be wedded in ways where we move with it more gracefully. So looking at the subject of change, I thought I'd look up the definition. And the definition of change is the act or instance of making or becoming different. I thought, well, that makes sense. And I thought, well, what's my definition of change? And it's this. It's the process of loss and gain, or gain and loss. And I thought about this more deeply. I said, well, is that really true? What if I have a gain? I have money come in and I have some more money come in. That's gain. But what's leaving? Lack, right? What's leaving? Poverty. Those types of things are leaving. So there's always something coming and going in this equation of change. And how we interpret the gain or the loss has a lot to do with what our experience will be. For instance, some people lose a job unexpectedly, right? That loss could be interpreted as the sky is falling, everything's coming to an end, or it could be experienced as here's a new possibility. I could really go do something I want to do, right? That interpretation is entirely up to us and shapes our experience of that change. Or sometimes we get a gain, like we have an adult child move back in the house. Anybody have an adult child ever move back? Yeah, that's a gain into the house. So we could look at that as my PG&E bill's going up, my food's going to get eaten, the house just got smaller. Or we could look at it as I get to spend more time with my adult child, right? I get to deepen my relationship with them. Either way, the situation is the same, but our interpretation, the way we cultivate our mind, will shape how we feel about it. So there are 2 types of change, expected and unexpected, and they come in 2 flavors, wanted and unwanted. And the most difficult change to deal with is unexpected and unwanted change. Who here in the past couple of years has had an experience of unexpected, unwanted change? I know I have. Yeah, it's really tough. That's the toughest one. And here's what I want to say about that. When we have an unexpected, unwanted change, one of the most powerful things we can do is come to community, come to Sunday service, stay afterwards, get prayer, get support, speak what's on your heart. I think the most painful thing is to go through an unexpected, unwanted change alone. And we don't have to do that because we are better together. And you have this beautiful community to lean into in those times. And the reason I'm bringing this up, and this may seem obvious, but what I've noticed in our metaphysical community that we're very self-reliant people, aren't we? We kind of tend to be. And in that self-reliance, there tends to be a pullback when life gets hard. We don't want to show up in community. We don't want to be seen. We don't want to talk to our friends because we're trying to handle it. But the truth is, we're much stronger and better when we do allow people into our space when we're feeling vulnerable like that. And I think it's really important to mention in metaphysical community that when people do lean in with their vulnerability in this situation that has shown up, the most powerful thing we can do is listen and provide compassion and support. And the reason I say that is sometimes as metaphysicians, we tend to go right to cause and mind and what's in your consciousness, and that can cut off the healing process. So I really want to remind us that the healing for this change and the support that's needed in that moment is to be seen, to be heard, and to be supported first. We can always go back and unpack it later. You know, I love what Steve Atkinson says about change. He says, people change for two main reasons. Either their minds have been opened or their hearts have been broken. Either their minds have been opened or their hearts have been broken. I had a mind-opening experience about 15 years ago that led me down another path that actually facilitated huge change in my life. I'd been in a position for years that I was really not liking. In fact, I think a part of me knew I needed to leave, but I didn't want to acknowledge that. Oh, no, not that. You ever know something, but you didn't want to know it? So what did I do? I ignored it. Right? My mother liked my job. She liked my title. I was superintendent. She liked to tell all her friends. And then she made her transition. And she had always told me, do what you love. And I didn't love what I was doing. So I didn't leave yet. I kept ignoring my wisdom, and then I got sick, really sick. I remember waking up in the hospital, seeing the tubes and the bags and the wires and feeling pain head to toe and asking myself, how did I get here? How did I get here? And when I got really still, I was put in this little timeout by spirit, couldn't go anywhere. I had to be with myself. I had to be with my thoughts and my understanding. And as I was going through that process of figuring out how I got here, what came top of mind is, I didn't love my job. It was killing me. My body was screaming. My body was giving me the memo, even though my mind didn't want to hear it. And I kept coming up with the same excuses. Well, if I leave my job, how do I pay my mortgage? How do I do my bills? And here's where my mind opened up. A dead person can't pay bills. Like at some point, it doesn't make sense to stay. So I made a decision I was going to leave. So I go back to work and I didn't leave yet. Because I knew that if I'm going to leave from something, I got to have a vision of what I'm moving to. Because if we just move away from something and we don't have a vision of what we're moving to, we move right back into it again, just in a different form, on a different stage, with different characters, same thing playing out. So I was guided to get this book called The Purpose of Your Life by Carol Adrian. Highly recommend this book. She helped me walk through the journey of my life, looking through the lens of spirit of what might be a deeper purpose for why I came to the planet. And you know what I came up with? I want to be a public speaker. I want to help people. I want to be a light in the world. So I knew exactly what I needed to do and wanted to be. But I was still afraid to lean into this knowing. And then I got that little bit of nudge from the universe, from God, from spirit, ironically in our employee newsletter, which included a quote every time. And this was the quote that I leaned into as I made this change. It was a quote by Edward Teller, and it goes like this. When you reach the end of all the light you've known, and it's time to step into the darkness of the unknown, faith is knowing one of two things will happen. Either your foot will land on something solid, or you will learn to fly. And in that moment, I knew that I could do this. And I handed in my resignation. I set my intention. And then you got to be careful what you ask for, because now I was on the potter's wheel of the universe. And all kinds of things started happening. Yes, the house left. I ended an 8-year relationship. I ended up going to practitioner school. I had to claim bankruptcy to reset my finances. I cleaned up some behaviors that were really toxic. I even changed my gender in 3 years. And at the other end of that, that's when the speaking opportunities came. That's when the teaching opportunities came. All of these things started showing up after I was done with all of this change in 3 years. It was mind blowing to me. But I just kept saying yes, yes to the next thing, knowing that I was landing on something solid or I was flying. One of the two were going to happen. And because I went through those changes, I'm here today with you, authentically me, and sharing some of the lessons and blessings along the way. Oh, I love it when my PowerPoint goes crazy. So there are 3 parts to change. There's the catalyst event, whether it's broken heart, mind open, a gain, a loss, a decision, the catalyst event. Then when the catalyst event happens, when I let go of my job, I entered into the in-between phase. Anybody know the desert phase, when you don't know, like you have no solid, everybody knows this phase, right? Life isn't what it used to be, but it isn't what it's becoming. It's the in-between. So I really felt kind of lost. I didn't have my title anymore. I didn't have that position. I didn't have a job to go to. I didn't have routines. I didn't have any structure. So it was a very fluid time in my experience until I started to find spiritual community. I started to create some routines, and life started to assimilate in a new way. You know, I love how the butterfly really exemplifies this whole process of change, right? It gets a pull to do something different. It gets a pull to climb up a plant and to do something it's never done before, right? This catalyst event of creating the cocoon. And then it's in the cocoon and it turns to goo. Sometimes our life turns to goo, right? It doesn't have any form. And what's in there now are these specialized cells it's created called imaginal cells. And I love this name of imaginal because that's really where we create, is in the workshop of the imagination. This is the most powerful phase of change. This is where we can use our intention, our vision, our imagination, our creative force of our mind in really powerful ways to create that new reality that's calling itself in, the new structures, the new form of our life, just like the butterfly, creating a new form of itself, a new reality to walk in, and in its case, to actually fly in. And I love what Ernest Holmes says. He says, you are to believe with the utmost simplicity and faith that there's a pattern of your being, the real spirit of you, which is eternal, is as eternal as God and as indestructible as the real reality and the changeless truth. And when he says changeless truth, he uses a capital T. That truth that is always true, no matter what changes. This definition of truth is that which never changes. And you are a piece of this truth, of this ultimate reality. There's a piece of you, the real you, not the personality you, not the body you, not the labels you, not the reputation you, but this essence of you. That part, that changeless part, we can lean into and know there's an essence of us that is whole, perfect, and complete, no matter what's going on in our lives, with our finances, with our spouse, with our friends, with our bodies, right? Any of that goes back in the box of life, right? But there's this spiritual part. So I like to talk about letting go of attachments, these 4 attachments we get when we get a human body, right? I am what I have, what I do, what others think of me, and I'm this body. So when we can transcend the knowing of those things, what starts to happen with those things no longer hook us, right? No longer have a hold on us. For me, it's like, I know I'm thinning my hair out, I'm very attached to my hair, but that's not who I am. That's not who I am. And I can wear that attachment like a loose coat because who I am is a spiritual being. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin reminds us that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we can keep that top of mind, we can be much more graceful about those other attachments and things that will come and go. So the life agreement comes with, our contract comes with some agreements. Anybody read the life contract before you came, the fine print? There's some fine print in there, right? Everything has an ebb and a flow to it, right? In the morning, we have some energy. At night, we get tired, right? There's this rhythm, this ebb and flow. Our finances flow, our finances shrink, right? Who's in our life flows, and those things shrink. Everything has a rhythm to it, and that is part of life. And we need not get too concerned when those things start to show up. The other agreement is you will have an experience of life. That's it. You will have an experience of life, and you get to decide what that means to you. That's in the fine print. Notice that life doesn't should on us. It doesn't say you should do this, you should be this, you should have that, you should act this way. We do that to ourselves, not life. Right? And so this is one of the agreements. And then the last agreement we need to talk about is it all goes back in the box. All our stuff, everything we have, it all goes back in the box. Everything we have, we either leave it or it leaves us. And wearing our stuff, our labels, everything like a loose coat helps us remember that someday we're going to take it off. When we get overly attached, we're creating pain and resistance to things that need to leave that we've created. None of it's ours. The love is. We get to take that. The love, the grace, the peace, the memories, those things we get to take. I remember I had 3 little dogs, and I would look at them. I loved my dogs. And I'd say, someday you're going to break my heart. Someday you're going to break my heart. Don't you wish your animals would outlive you sometimes? I mean, it's hard, right? It's hard. And during COVID, I actually lost 2 of my dogs within a week of each other. But I will tell you, the practice of remembering, right, that someday they're going to leave, and I would do that, helped me during that time to let go with love, with grace, and to show up in a way that was peaceful and strong for them so that they could have a good transition. See, this is our work. This is our work. I love Jack Kornfield talks about the Buddhist monk who takes his favorite cup that he pours tea in, his favorite teacup. And before he pours the tea in, he looks at the cup and he sees it broken, shattered. And after he sees it shattered, he takes his cup and he pours the tea in, and then he drinks from it. And when he drinks from it with such reverence now, because it isn't broken yet, but he knows someday it will be. And he has a deeper experience and appreciation of the teacup because he did that. So here's the thing. With our life contract, we can cultivate our mind about our experiences of life. And the way I like to look at the changes in my life and what I'm experiencing for me are either one of two things. They're either a lesson or a blessing. So when I'm going through a change, I start looking for what's the lesson and what's the blessing. Because when I can keep my mind in that high vision of consciousness, it helps me move through whatever I need to move through, right? Because change can be challenging, change can be uncomfortable. But if we cultivate that mind of what is the lesson, what is the blessing, what can I work with in consciousness to navigate, just like that 92-year-old lady, I already see my room is beautiful. I already know the outcome is going to be amazing. And I've let go. She must have let go of her old house and her favorite room and the chair she used to love to sit in. See, she had let that go for her to be able to flow into a new environment with appreciation, with grace, with using an acceptance of what is and making that leaning into that change in a way that is beautiful, that is empowering, that is bringing her a sense of joy. We always have that ability to bring to the changes that we're being pulled through, guided through, shepherded through. You know, Ernest Holmes says that there is a pattern, this pattern of your true being that is seeking to manifest through you. And back of it is all the will and purpose of the universe. All the irresistible laws of being are behind this pattern. And he says, finally, it will win. So with these patterns that are pulling through us, coming through us for change, to become and be and do and all the things that our spirit, this pattern is pulling through us, we can either lean into it and go with it or be dragged. And in my case, I was dragged before I let go of that job. And so I just invite you to think, what pattern is being pulled through me now? What change am I being called to from our spirit? And that change might feel scary. It might mean relocating. It might mean taking on something new, a new project, a new responsibility, whatever it is. But here's what I want you to hear. Back of that pattern, back of that call for change is the whole power of the universe supporting you, guiding you, and shepherding you through it, giving you something solid to land on or wings to fly as you move through those changes. So I want to invite you, whatever change you're going through or may go through in the future, continue to cultivate your spiritual view that you're in an eternal piece of source, fully supported, guided, directed, and protected as you move through your changes of life. And to practice acceptance now, acceptance that it all goes back into the box, acceptance that life is going to have an ebb and a flow, and that whatever it is, this too shall pass. Because resistance creates a pain that we can control, no matter what the situation is. And then lastly, to live life on life's terms, to wear life like a loose coat, to see your favorite mug is broken before you sip your coffee, and to lean in to this idea of impermanence. And I'm going to leave you with a beautiful quote from Rumi. He says, try not to resist the change that comes your way. Instead, let life live through you, and do not worry that the life is turning upside down. How do you know that the side that you're used to is better than the one to come? And so it is. Let's take this message into meditation and prayer. I just invite everyone to take a deep breath in and let it out. Another deep cleansing breath in. And on the exhale, just letting go of anything that's come before this moment. allowing your mind and your body to become still, dropping into the inner chamber of your being, feeling into your heart space, all your attention on your heart, breathing the chi of life right into your heart directly. That innermost chamber of wisdom, the heart. The spark of your eternal essence lives, where all the wisdom is, all the grace, all the power, all the courage, all the joy. Your eternal wholeness, your essence, the high truth of your being that was never born and never dies, just changes expression. I'm just feeling deeply into the heart space, allowing its wisdom to come forward in top of mind. What does your heart want you to know today? What expression of truth or love does it have for you? So as I turn my mind to the high truth, that there's only one presence, one power, one being, one life, one energy. And I am a piece of that energy, that love, that wisdom, that grace, and that each and every person here is a manifestation of this presence, this love, this wisdom, this power. And that a back of your being is this perfect pattern unfolding in you, through you, and as you. And I know we can trust it. We can let this power of the presence lead us through its unfolding, this unfolding we call change. And that we can step in it with the knowing that we are held, that we are directed, that we are sourced, that we are supported, that we are supplied with every need already met even before we ask. All the right doors opening, all the wrong doors closing. In this journey of unfolding we call life. And I give thanks knowing that we can trust life in its wisdom and its presence and how it brings us through this experience. And that we can work with our mind for a greater experience of love, peace, ease, and grace as it unfolds. And I give thanks for this community called the Center for Universal Oneness, the center that keeps the light on and the wisdom pouring forth and the power of community shining brightly in each and every person's life that is here today and all those to come. I give thanks for this. I give thanks for this day, this moment, this breath. And I lean into life. I lean into God. I lean into spirit. And I let go. I let good. I let God flow in me, through me, and as me. I release this word, and together we say, and so it is.